So will you just double check on the on the feed and just on the chat feed and just see if people can hear. So guys, welcome back. We are having issues with Skype. Not quite sure what's going on with that. Every once in a while it does malfunction if you use Skype on the regular like I do. But we are here, and I would love for you to go ahead in the chat on the window for this broadcast. Feel free to say hello, say that you can hear and see, because both things are important. And I am going to work on some things with you for the next couple minutes about CX, since that's what we were talking about. Have we got live over there? Confirmation? Yeah? Cool. All right, so isn't Carol amazing? She's just an amazing, amazing woman. While we were offline, she and I were talking about the interesting phenomenon where the mid-sized businesses owned and run by women are really underserved and underrepresented. And when we say mid-sized, I mean usually like, let's say 20 to 120 employees. Those businesses are technically small. I don't know what their revenue may be, anywhere between $1 million and 20 million a year. But what is interesting is that very few businesses of that size are actually run and owned by women. And my work, most of my work is with male business owners, CEOs who own companies that are that size. So they're like in the 15 to like $50 million in revenue range, and they have roughly, anywhere between 10 and like 100 employees. And what's interesting is that I suspect a lot of you want to grow to that level. And it's definitely very possible, but as Carol shared, there are a lot of mistakes that people tend to make along the way. And while your challenges do change over time, there are some things that continually stick with the company that she was talking about, namely, making sure that you're insulated against seasonality and that you have relationships that you can go to when you do have a down season, because it's inevitable for every business. I've shared this before, but when I was at the Inc. 500 conference, which is about the 500 to 5,000 fastest growing companies in the nation, that's an honor to be in that group. The number one challenge for these businesses was always cash flow, because especially when you're growing, you need more money to grow. So I want to just encourage you to stay the course, take the long-term view for your business, and know that if you do have the goal of growing to a 1 million, a 10 million, a $30 million company, that it's very possible and that it can happen for you. I desperately need water, so I'm going to just grab some. Is this one mine, or is that yours?
These are mine.
You can't use mine.
Alright. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is the concept of the CX narrative. And when we're talking about CX, consumer experience, it's really important to have a concept of what you want your customer to experience over the life cycle of their being a client. So I created something called the CX narrative arc. It's here. Yay! Can you see that? Yes?
Yes.
Cool. I'm going to get closer. And I know that you can't see all the details on it, but I'm going to go through it, and this would be a good place to take notes, I think. Okay, so the CX narrative arc is adapted from Freytag's pyramid. If you've ever taken, I don't know, high school English, then you had that concept of, in a narrative arc of a novel or a short story or a play, you had the exposition, the rising action, the climax, the falling action, and then the denouement, the resolution. And I was thinking about that the other day while I was in a coffee shop, and I realized that it could apply to so many things in our business. I've applied it here to the CX narrative. I've also applied it to the content that you create for your company, and then how you structure that content to create a specific experience for your customer. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. And I think it's important, given that we're all in business, we all want to create customers that are lifetime customers. And I'm going to start with the exposition. So exposition is the meet and greet. It's what she was talking about, Carol was saying, with the first time someone comes into the store. How does that meet and greet happen? The first time someone hits your website, how does that meet and greet happen? That's their first interaction with a brand. And this is where you just want to start to give facts about like the who, what, when, where, and why of your brand. Just simple things. The touch points of your first contact could be an event, a live event. It could be a website. It could be a referral. It could be social media. They saw your Twitter. It could be something else. But you have to decide from that first step, the exposition, what your desired next step is. Now, my desired next step for a client is, or for a potential client, is always rising action. I want them to engage further in my brand. So, how do I do that? The rising action is like getting to know you. It's like the first couple, dates, if you will, if you're thinking of your client relationship that way. The rising action is what builds the knowledge of your brand. It enhances your exchange. It enhances their experience of your brand. And it's relationship centric. It's not about product. It's not product centric at all. So in that rising action, they've met you, they kind of get your deal, and then in that rising action, that's where they're starting to dig a little bit deeper. So touch points for rising action include newsletters, blogs, free products. It could be a lower price product. It could also still be social media, and here, I think you could also put snail mail if you capture their mailing address. The important thing, I think, in the rising action, so here we go, the important thing here is to invite your customer, your potential customer, to make the change that your product offers. So for instance, if it's a swimsuit like Malia Mills, then you're inviting them to try on the difference that their swimsuit makes for your body. For me, as a client or as a coach, I'm inviting someone to experience the change that working with me offers before they've even worked with me. So I want them to experience that without necessarily signing on for an individual session. So I can think of several different ways to do that. But that's what you get in the rising action. You really want to get them to know more and to want to experience the change that your product or service provides. So that's rising action. Now, the climax is that's where they make it official. That's where they become a client. That is, it's the point of no return. It is the turning point. It is the no going back. To me, it's also where they become a client and they say, yes, I want to make the change. Because ultimately, when they do that, is when the change really starts to happen. So the climax or turning point is where they're engaging with your signature product or service. So this would be where they decide to buy the swimsuit. Over here is where they decide to try it on, right? Here is where they decide to buy. And the touch points here are however you deliver your product or service. So it could be any meeting. It could be in person. It could be over the phone. It could be via Skype if Skype were working. And that's where they start to experience your change. Because let's be honest, they experience your change the second they make a decision to pay you money. That's when the change starts. Okay, so then this part often gets ignored, I think, in the client relationship and the CX relationship arc. So this is the falling action. This is where we're putting it into practice. This is where they get to experience the delivery of your product or service. This is where they're on the beach wearing their swimsuit. This is where you're in the midst of 12 weeks of coaching. This is where they're integrating it into their lives. So in novels, in narratives, this is also where they say the conflict unravels. So this is where things start to settle out. The touch points of this, I think, are really important to have really specific, clear follow through. So this is the time when I'm having unlimited emails with my clients and really striving to respond to them within 24 hours. This is the time where a fit specialist from Malia Mills is going to email and see how they like that swimsuit. This is where a good place for snail mail and phone calls to follow up and see, hey, you just bought a horse from me. How's that horse doing for you? So your touch points can take a lot of different mediums, but they're always going to be focused on the desired next step, which is you want your client to make that change a permanent part of their lives. That's the desired next step. And it brings us to this next little part here. I call it resistance or reversal. In a narrative, so in a novel or in a romantic comedy movie, that's when you think things have just been hammered out, and then at the very end, you're like, oh no, it's all gonna go to shit. All of a sudden, you think that everything that has sort of resolved is going to be ruined by something. And that happens in more, I would think, in service businesses than in product businesses. But it's where there's like, oh my gosh, the nail biter right at the end to build in a little bit of tension. We know as coaches, as service providers, that that's going to happen with every client. There's going to be a moment when they're like, oh, they don't want to do it anymore, they hit a wall and they're freaking out. And this is that last little bit of resistance. It's the 3 feet from gold, if you've ever heard that concept. If you haven't, go Google it. The touch point here is super important because you, as the service or product provider, need to anticipate this reversal. You need to anticipate this resistance. How do you do that? You need to get in their minds and know when it's going to come up and know what they need at that time. So let's say you're offering a coaching service and you're offering transformational work or healing work, and you know that there's always like a little right at the end before they break through, right? You want to make sure that you're there for them and speak to them in their language, the way they want to be spoken to, before that reversal happens. You want to walk them through it. You want to hold their hand. You could say in the fitting room. This actually entire cycle happens in the fitting room of the swimsuit store. You could say that resistance is the last ditch. Oh, but I really don't like my body here. And that's where you have to bring them back to, oh, but what about your long neck? It looks great in the swimsuit. And don't you feel comfortable, right? Because that's ultimately what people want. They want to feel comfortable in their swimsuit. They don't want to be pulling it. Ditto with coaching. You want them to feel comfortable with the changes and to go back to the things that have brought them to that point. And really embrace them. And that's where it becomes a permanent thing in their lives. It's not something that they're just doing because they're in a 12-week program with you. They're actually enacting the changes that you guys have worked together so hard on, and they're making them a daily choice. So that's right before the eventual resolution, which is the denouement. In French, that is the untying of the knot. And that's when, this is really important for CX, customer experience. It's so important. So the desired next step from that reversal is perseverance. You empower them to persevere. They get to the denouement. You've got the untying of the knot. This is catharsis. This is resolution. Yay. Your product, your service has served its purpose. They've decided to adopt it into their lives. They got through that little bit of resistance there at the end. And now, yes, they are a customer for life. They're a fan for life. And they're so excited that they want to share about their experience. And that's what happens in the denouement. The touch points. That's where you get to invite them to recap their hero story. They get to recap this whole arc for you in a shareable medium. Whether it's social media or a blog of their own or a video, testimonial, what have you, they're going to recap their hero experience, their journey from the exposition to the rising action, to that climax, what made them buy, to the falling action, to their final resistance, the final little reversal there at the end, and then finally incorporating that into their lives. So your desired next step at the denouement is that they actually share their entire experience and cast themselves in the role of hero of your CX. So that was like a really quick and dirty approach to what's going on with CX and how we as business owners and as change specialists, a lot of us are that, no matter what we're selling, that is a quick and dirty look at how we can take a very thoughtful and intentional approach to the experience that our potential customers have through the life cycle of their engagement with our product or service, and also through the life cycle of their own emotional journey as they go through this process. Because CX, customer experience, is emotional. It should be. If it's not, then something's wrong. It's emotional even if you're just selling like hardware, you know, it's still emotional. So I invite you, I'm going to give you guys a download of this. This is something that I just came up with, like, I don't know, last week, and I realized that it could help me, and it could help so many of my clients as we start to navigate this very, very luxurious, high-touch CX that delivers us high-paying clients who don't give a fig for the price point, who only want to work for us or with us because we've created something that is this transformational. Cool. And ultimately, what does it give you? It gives you brand ambassadors, people who are happy to go cast themselves in the role of hero of your brand. So that is the CX narrative arc. A little bit academic there, but and I'm going to continue to show how that narrative arc can help you in your business. That's going to be sort of a theme. So whenever we have little breaks, we're going to dive into a little bit of that. If you have any questions about the CX narrative arc, let me know. And again, you'll get this as a PDF. It's got to get scanned. It's kind of a big document. It's got to get scanned on a big bed scanner so that you guys can have access to it. And I'm actually going to host a workshop on it too, where you will get an opportunity to craft your own CX and try it out and get feedback on it. So that is it. It's about 11:30. We are going to go. Are there any questions on the feed? Silent? Really, guys? Come on. I know somebody has a question. We'll wait for you. Will you refresh so you can get one? Mm-hmm. Oh, no. Don't stop it. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Oh, that's okay. Okay. So we're going to go offline.